one minute or 90-second update from each of the communities. It's always fun for people from other communities to hear about either your successes or shared challenges. And so I'm going to call on George, and I know asking him to limit himself to 90 seconds is will be the biggest challenge today for him. But George, how's your multi-county effort going? You're muted.
We're moving a little bit slow, but I think as we get to learn to get to know each other in the next couple of weeks, I think we're going to start picking up the pace. I am a little bit behind on communicating with the Bond County group, but I believe that they're going to connect today at the Leadership Council broadband effort, and then we're going to follow back around next week to really try to see what we can do together, and really start shifting our focus on the survey too. So, but the one thing I will say positive wise, and I will shut up, Bill, is we have a very nice eclectic group, a good representative of our entire region. So there's not really one region that's going untouched. So that's kind of an update from our area.
Good, thank you. How about Bond County? If you're talking, you're muted.
I can see your unmute button coming off, but we still are unable to hear you.
Yeah, we'll come back. Let's try Ogle County.
Our representative's not here yet.
Well, then that's you.
Go ahead, Chris.
Okay, I have some notes here from Don from the last meeting. I know we were working on the survey, and Pat started to complete that. She has an introductory text on the survey started, and she also has some notes from what the other counties are doing. And that's about all I have for now. I'm still trying to do catch up.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
So in fact, she'll give you the more complete story.
All righty. And Kankakee CDC joint effort.
Basically, we're just still working on the survey. We've got the opening language put together, and we'll be presenting that to the group probably in the next few days.
Good, thank you.
And Pembroke Township, the CDC has been working. We're looking to do a community-wide effort to share the language of broadband with our community and constituents in order to properly, deploy the survey.
Okay, great. Thanks, Jahari. And let's go to Livingston.
We're still moving forward. We've got our plan going with the survey. We're investigating speed test, see where we can collect that kind of data, and then just working on the outreach to the communities.
Good, thank you. And Peoria?
I think we're in good shape. We've met a couple of times this week, and we've got our background contact list form thanks to Gracie, and we've done our review of the survey instrument, and they're working on strategies for rolling it out.
Good, thanks, Kathy. And we'll give Bond another chance.
Can you hear us now?
Yes.
Okay, so we had a slight head start on getting our survey out. But in the past week, we've tried to expand our the amount of communities we're going into to try and get more survey results out of those areas. We've gone to restaurants and other public places and put up a bunch of flyers and talked to folks who would potentially help spread the word on it. So we have less than a month on our survey left, but hopefully we'll kind of get a better outlook from the whole county.
Good, thank you. Well, I appreciate the great work that the teams are doing to try to move forward on the surveys. I think we'll find great benefit to having those surveys launched and being responded to over the next multiple weeks, and then have the data back you know, it's, we like to think, okay, the survey's over, push a button and here comes the report. But I think our team, Nancy and Shavika in particular, they really look at the data and they say, well, this looks right, or this doesn't look right. And in our last round, we had people offer incentives that turned into some bot submitting surveys that they had to clean out. And so it's not quite as easy as we would hope. And so having more time to get those surveys processed and so on prior to the planning piece of this is important. I'm going to share my screen, and we do have three great guests here today. We've got Cassie from Mercer County and Brian from where am I? Jackson County, and then Julia from City of Springfield. And they went through this process just months ago and completed about a month ago. And I think when you think again that, okay, let's create a vision statement for our community, that's an easy task. But I think we're going to find out today that there's a lot of discussion that needs to happen, that words have meaning and so on. So I've got just a couple slides I'm going to go through before we get to our guests. And so I'm going to share my screen. And go to there. Good. How's that looking, Nancy?
That looks great, Bill.
Good, thank you. And so, you know, the main point of this slide is this: it's worth the work to put into this vision statement and really come up with a good one. We had one community that I worked with, they said, well, why don't we just use the state's vision for broadband and we'll just adapt that, we'll just take it and run with that. And you know, each of these words have value or have meaning, and it's important that this will really help guide your decision making down the road as you think about what it is that you're hoping to accomplish. You want to determine your community values. That could be, oh, we want to connect everyone. Affordability might be a value that's of high importance to your community. Deciding what's good enough in terms of speeds or speed of deployment. Is there a geographic focus to your area? What technology options are acceptable for us? You're not necessarily going to decide on your technology options, your choices during the vision statement, but having a conversation about some of those things will really be important. And then deciding what's the community role in making this happen. And we know that between communities, there can be a wide variety of roles that communities are willing to take, from cheerleader to network owner and operator. And so that is important to begin to have these discussions. Each word in the vision statement needs to have clear meaning, shared understanding of the meaning. Each word represents a choice that will have implications later in the process. And then I just want to say that don't be afraid to update your vision as necessary, because hopefully through this 14 weeks and really beyond, new information becomes available, your team becomes smarter, there might be political changes that influence the vision. There could be financial resources that are available that you say, hey, we didn't think we could do 100% fiber before, but now with the BEAD money that's coming from the federal government, that's what we're going to pursue. And so these are just to think about this as we move forward through this vision process today. Next we have Cassie Henshaw, who's a consultant to the county board in Mercer County. Welcome, Cassie.
Hi, thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone.
Hi, Cassie.
So in Mercer County, we started joining the Accelerate program after being a part of Connect Illinois. And so as we came into the Accelerate program, we were the one thing we were missing was a clear vision statement that then sort of connected us to the work moving forward to bring broadband into Mercer County. So through the program and through the process, our vision statement today is everyone in Mercer County will have access to high-performing broadband internet infrastructure and services that enables prosperity today and for the future. And so, Bill, you were talking about each word having an implication and a meaning, and more importantly, a shared meaning. We at first didn't have the word internet in our vision statement, and then or services, and then realized that maybe broadband means something different for some sub parts of our community, and perhaps maybe there are folks that don't quite understand what that is. So I just wanted to bring that up to really hone in on what you were saying before on thinking clearly about every word that's in your vision statement and making sure, like you said, that it has shared meaning and it means something to the majority of those you're serving. So to get to our vision statement, we did exactly what you were laying out some bullet points of questions, and we did that exact same thing. So through the process and through that week and Accelerate, we took our inventory of what we knew and what we didn't know, what was important to us. And so of course this list it's not exclusive. There are a lot of other questions, but essentially we needed to know who had internet right now, how fast was their internet, was it working, who didn't have internet, which organizations and institutions in our community relied the most on internet and didn't have it, or it wasn't fast enough, who need internet the most and the quickest. So we sort of, began categorizing these, I guess, we'll call them constituents, into categories of, okay, who needs it the most, who has it. So for example, the list of those that needed it the most and needed it to be the most effective was our schools, our hospitals, our police stations, the fire stations, so on and so forth. And that just kind of helped us create a sense of priority, sort of a foundation to start building a priority. And then what type of internet are we striving for? Is it a 100% fiber build out? Is it a hybrid model of fiber and fixed wireless? What are the options to build that hybrid model? And then what's Illinois' goal? And then is it realistic to reach that in 5 years? Do we plan for that in 10? How are we going to pay for broadband? What are our options today? What are our local private, investment opportunities? What are our state investment opportunities? Grant funding, loan programs, it's just, again, just continuing to build that inventory. What are our local ISPs doing? Our local service providers? We have 3 in our county. And if you haven't gotten there yet, you'll learn through this program that building a relationship with your local internet service providers becomes one of the most important pieces, or at least it did for us. And so including them in the build out and in the strategy and in the vision statement was really important early on. And then sort of the biggest question that kind of led to what we valued as a community: what does a lack of internet do for Mercer County? What does it do for our families, our students, those that work here, those that do business here, those that seek healthcare here? The list goes on. And so we spent a lot of time building that inventory. And then from that inventory, we sort of worked backwards. We answered the questions that we could. And again, it was through this program that we were able to do that. We answered the questions that we could and gathered as much data as possible. And then the questions we couldn't answer, we thought, okay, how do we get the answers to those questions? Because that's really important. And then both of those pieces, as we worked through this program, sort of led to what we're calling, or in my consulting work, what we call our principles. And so the principles, or your value statements, kind of go back to, okay, as a team, what are we saying about our goals and how we're going to serve our community? How is this team going to bring broadband to Mercer County to fill all those voids? And so as of right now, we have 4. And our team is we're gonna essentially make connections to other teams in the community. We're gonna connect with information, assets, resources. We're gonna connect our network map. So what does our network map look like? And we're gonna connect to some funding. We're going to distribute internet to what we identified as our outreach pieces. So those that need it most, the fastest, and the easiest way to bring it. We are going to lead whatever efforts we need to build the broadband infrastructure in our county. And we're going to set a goal of at least 25.3. And we used that, that was in reflection of the Illinois state goals. And then we're going to prepare for the future growth of internet by 2028, again, reflecting state goals, 120. And so to get to our vision statement, we thought, okay, if we achieve those principles, or as we're achieving those principles, and we're kind of checking the list, what then does that do for Mercer County? Well, then Mercer County will have access to high-performing broadband internet infrastructure and services that enables prosperity today and for the future. And so for us, and I get very much into detail, for us, working backwards a little bit brought us to essentially our thesis statement, our vision. We worked backwards to figure out, okay, if we do all the things that we know are important, that match our culture, that serve the community, you know, that it's matches the output that this team is offering, then what? And that then what became our vision. And so from there, we were able to take that vision and then each principle and sort of attach work to that and begin building our strategic plan. And we sort of built it through phases. We attached some timelines there. But having that vision statement was really important because not only did it initiate work that needed to happen to build a strategy, but as we go through decision-making processes and meetings, our vision statement sort of serves as the guidebook to making these choices for the community. Does this match our vision? Yes or no? Yes, okay, where can we plug that work into our strategic plan? No, okay, if it doesn't match, then I'm sorry, we have to move on, or we have to figure out if it's important enough to then get built into the vision statement and the strategy principles, so on and so forth. So like Bill said, I am the community development consultant to the county board. The county board was really, we're really proud of them for stepping up and taking a leadership role, like many of you have, to bring broadband to the community, because it's a big project, takes a lot of patience and thought, and it takes a team effort to really kind of bring this to fruition. Even though it's under, you know, I'm kind of helping to guide it. It took our county board and their desire to have a vision and to really make this happen, to bring this all to fruition. And this Accelerate program was astronomical in getting us to the point where we are now, where, okay, we have a clear vision, principles, we have a pretty good looking strategic plan that's probably going to evolve through time, but we can now see the light at the end of the tunnel. And creating that vision statement was the flashlight that got us there.
Great. Thank you so much, Cassie. That was illuminating, as you would say.
Thank you.
Next up is Brian Chapman from Jackson County. Welcome, Brian. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Bill. It's great to be back with you and the Benton Institute and all the great work that you are doing. And I have made the request for Anthony Henson to join me as well. Anthony's out of our county board office and he's our new grant writer and he is a wordsmith. So I thought he might be able to assist a little bit in this effort. But Cassandra, forgive me if I repeat some of your talking points because our experience is much like yours. I'll add a few things, and in that for us, having a diversified group of individuals on our team helped us with our vision statement. And like you, we collected our data sets first, right? So we kind of had an idea what was going on within the county. And since that time, I can say that we have found our vision statement to be a guiding statement in our work. We've found our vision statement to be a very public statement, especially when you start thinking about elected officials and our county board members. And it's something that they can wrap their work around. We've also found this statement to be a needs statement, right, to assist us with our grant writing. And as a recovering a political science professor, I can tell you that you need to edit, and edit your vision statement, right? You will not write your vision statement correctly and get it done the first time around. And it is perfectly fine to continue to massage that vision statement and to edit as you move forward. So this is not an academic exercise, right? This is about understanding your needs and putting a very public statement out there to wrap yourself around. And so for us, I'll just run through some of the actual words within our vision statement and how we got there. And Anthony, please join in at any time that you would like. But for us, we didn't start from scratch. We did our research and we went out and looked at other vision statements, and we collected words from those vision statements that we felt met our needs for Jackson County. So to provide modern, accessible, and adaptable broadband infrastructure that serves and supports the evolving educational, healthcare, and economic needs of Jackson County residents, businesses, and visitors is what we've decided on for now. Now it may change, but for now, that's where we are. Let me tell you a little bit about how we got there. We chose the word to provide modern broadband because we know that the technology is evolving, right? So that, and for Jackson County, one size does not fit all. For us, we know that we're going to have a solution that will involve fixed wireless and fiber. So we want it to be continually evolving. We want it to be accessible. We had a long talk as a group about equality and the issues of accessibility to broadband. And so it was deemed early on that we were going to use the word accessible. Adaptable broadband, it goes back to that idea that, again, one size does not fit all. For Jackson County, we have some of the most fertile river bottoms ground, which is easy to hit with wireless, but we also have some hills and rocks and trees that you just can't lay fiber through. And it's also hard to get a wireless signal through. So it has to be adaptable broadband infrastructure. And we needed to serve and support our educational needs. Like all of you, we had school districts that were really hit hard through COVID. We had school districts, including the one where I was the president of for 10 years, that had to manually photocopy homework packets and put them in the mail. Healthcare needs, we have a very large and growing healthcare industry, and telehealth is becoming more and more important throughout our region. And so we had issues with telehealth. And of course, the economic needs. We have a lot of work going on in the ag industry, work from home, right, that we need to support. We have work at the airport, et cetera, that we need to make sure that we're taking care of. The needs of Jackson County residents. Anthony, can you talk a little bit about how we came to the word resident?
Sure, Brian. Absolutely. So we had started with the word citizen, and we actually decided to back that up. And this is part of the accessible and equitable approach that we're taking. That in fact, anyone who lives or visits outside the concept of citizenship will be using the internet and should have access to it. So as been discussed, each and every word can have like unintended consequences and very specific meanings. And that's why we landed on residents.
Thank you, Anthony. Anthony was one of the proponents of the word resident versus citizen. We had some elected officials that thought maybe citizen was a little bit better. So, we had some very dynamic discussions about that. But at the end of the day, especially with SIU here in Jackson County, we have to recognize we have a very international population as well of students, faculty, and family that may not actually be citizens. So again, words do matter. Residence is the word of choice here. Businesses, obviously, we want to support all the economic development that's going on, the investments there, and to try to attract new businesses. And then visitors. The Jackson County Board, we're working hard to improve our tourism. We want to make sure that we address the needs of visitors as they come through the county, that they're fully connected and that we can meet their needs as well. So with that, Again, it's not an academic exercise. It's okay to edit, and that you, I think, will be like us, and you'll find your vision statement to be a guiding statement, a very public statement, and it's also a needs statement. Bill?
Ryan, that was great. Thank you. I love that framework about the 3 uses for that. And, I think, I've reviewed enough grants to know that, it's when a community seems to have their act together, have a statement like this, that's an immediate thing up front that people say, oh, they've done the work, they've thought about this. This wasn't done at the last 48 hours and to hit send for the grant, although it might have been. But you've done a lot of work, because we all do that on grants, of course, wait till something better might come in that you can use. But I think that is really a powerful way to think about this statement. So thank you. And then next up, we have Julia Frevert from the city of Springfield. Welcome, Julia.
Thank you. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So the city of Springfield is in a little different, I guess, boat when our cohort, because we were looking at more of our urban area and providing broadband to areas that may not necessarily have access. And so we actually started on this path in 2019, doing strategic plans. But as everybody knows, and we were getting ready to survey individuals, but as everybody knows that what happened in 2020. But we realized in the community what 2020 brought forward was that the racial and economic disparities that Springfield had. We always talked about the digital divide, but we didn't believe that everybody, we truly didn't understand it, I think, till 2020 when people had to go to remote access for education, remote access for work, and those who couldn't work remotely. We realized that a cell phone does not make someone connected. A lot of the individuals we were talking to felt that because they had a cell phone or a smartphone, that made them feel connected. But then the committee, as we were going on in our vision statement, the question was affordability versus accessibility. And would those go hand in hand? Would those be considered separate? What role did that play? And then, so as we started talking about it, we realized that through our vision statement, ours is definitely a lot longer than others, but it wasn't necessarily providing broadband. And I guess they say, if you build it, they will come. But we were also finding out that the lack of equipment for the homes. So just because we maybe had the money to run fiber to a home, that did not mean that they would have the ability to access, they had access to a computer or a tablet. Individuals said, well, school-age children were getting laptops and tablets from their school district, but oftentimes those were locked down, websites were locked down. So those weren't intended for maybe to apply online for jobs. Most of the pieces people were using the internet for was video streaming or video gaming or searching the internet. So that's what the other community said, is that we went through different iterations of this. So we figured we had to expand, that it wasn't just offering broadband, but also giving them access to technology. We would not be successful if we just simply ran the broadband, that we also had to look at a holistic approach of helping educate the community on how they could use broadband, because we learned that they only know what they know. And so they might not realize that they could access healthcare or doctor's visits through their tablet or computer. They may not know how to pay the bills. And so that was what the committee, it took us a while to get to this point that we also looked at. So it wasn't just the broadband, it wasn't just adding technology, it was also looking at the education component, and that options to broadband wasn't as necessary as giving them at least one option. So I'll read our vision statement, and we definitely also wanted timelines, because we know that sometimes government can work slowly. And so we had others on our committee that were in the community that said we really have to push ourselves. So by 2024, all residents, anchor institutions, and business locations in Springfield will have access to a minimum of one affordable and equitable broadband network that is capable of providing benefits of current and future economic, social, civic, educational, health, and entertainment applications for households and businesses in our city. That was also important as the area we're looking at had deprived, I guess, economic development. And we understood that that was key to also helping that community, was to help build up some of those businesses and having accessible fiber run to those businesses. And then by 2025, all Springfield residents will have access to affordable computing devices for their homes and businesses, along with free resources, including technical assistance and digital education courses to help all residents advance personally and professionally. So that went back to the point that we discussed, that just because we ran the fiber or offered a broadband service, that they needed the way to access that and also understand what they could do through these computing devices. And then through these initiatives, 100% of the city of Springfield residents will have access to broadband, personal devices, and digital education by 2026. So this also meant that we wanted to provide it. Now, people may not adopt it and they may have that choice of not adopting it, but we wanted to make sure that everybody had the ability to access it, and it would be up to them if they wanted to choose to use it or not. So that's kind of a synopsis of everything we've been working on. And our group is still working together. We actually have a meeting next week to move forward with our RFP, kind of hammering out those. But our vision is very important to making sure we go back to, what is our plan? What do we want to do? And also helped us break down our committee into those who are helping with the RFP and those who are helping more with the equipment, digital education component, et cetera.
Good. Thank you, Julia, so much. Any questions or comments from our communities to our panelists? No?
I have a question here.
Thank you.
Plus my.
For the lady that just spoke, your goal is pretty high on sort of almost a welfare level, where you're like making sure everyone has computers, internet, training. Don't you worry that setting at that high of a level, you're gonna, and you might not get the basics, like fiber ran from here to there?
Springfield's a little different because we own our own utility, and we have quite a bit of fiber, and so more in our core area. And then we did speak with all the providers. I know you'll go through provider interviews, and that was very eye-opening, because a lot of the providers felt they offered ample coverage to Springfield. But a lot of them also had services that we don't believe that the residents know about, that they do offer discounted computer programs or computers. And we just felt with the ARPA dollars, plus what these companies offer, plus we have a local company called Computer Bank that offers discounted computers and other resources. We actually felt it was something that was doable. It may seem lofty, but the mayor always challenges us that now is the time, this is the time. And we did feel as a group that there was enough resources there that it's something that we could do. But with the fiber, I think we're at a different stance, because we do have our own utility and the ability to possibly run it. Where we did feel we will have some gaps, but it could be potential, is workforce development. A lot of these companies need crews. And so one of our members is the Springfield Urban League. And so that was a discussion of, is there programs, or could we create programs specifically for workforce based around broadband and installation that could, help the workforce and create that. So I think that was actually one of the bigger gaps over providing the computers, was actually having the crews available to do these installations.
Good, thanks, Julia. And that's the thing with the vision. Hopefully, you can always run into problems or fall short, but unless you set that bar high, then you might be satisfied with half measures. So I applaud the aggressive tone of that. Other questions?
Yeah, Chris Van Hyman, Don Griffin from Ogle County here. Really enjoyed the three different vision statements, particularly of Jackson County, talking about the difficulties of getting across terrain and the like. And something else I was reading, probably some of the background information for today's meeting. What about the use of hotspots and such? Those I understand are not the same as what we're talking about. The quality, hotspots don't really, are inadequate. Any further comment on the technology?
So I would, from my point of view, the hotspots are the most expensive broadband solution there is for the quality of service generally that is provided in terms of the amount of data, the speed of the data, and so on. I mean, there's great advantages for people who want to be able to take that hotspot with them on their vacation, to the beach, to wherever they want to go. That mobility is a huge value. But if you think about even kind of the best cellular connections, the average 4G connection in this country is about 30 to 40 megabits. They can go up over 100. But when you look at some of the other technologies, they're not really built to compete with the fibers or the cable modems and so on. And so we've seen, certainly when the pandemic hit and school districts were ordering hundreds of hotspots to try and solve the digital equity issue, it was a marvelous solution, but it's not a great one for a family.
Bill, can I just add something real quick about hotspots?
Sure.
Thank you. Hotspots are a cellular driven device, right? And so I just want to share a little bit about some of the things that have evolved with our work, in that for all of you counties out there that may have a 911 board, reach out to them. Because in doing so, we have found that we have spots within our county that even cellular just doesn't get where it needs to go because of the lack of towers. And so we were looking to see how we can leverage our work with the 911 board on where we can locate towers, and then working with our local providers to see who may be interested in putting up towers and or assisting with these towers. So we can get a twofer, right? So we can meet the needs of broadband and using cellular, as well as improving our 911 response.
And it's, Brian, that's a great point. And that's actually a threefer, because most, the companies now, the big cell phone companies, they're not going to have a tower that doesn't have fiber to it anymore. And so middle mile backbone to connecting cell towers for public safety, AT&T is the national vendor for the Connect network for public safety. And so, but that's a huge driver of, if you can get that middle mile out there that's connecting cell towers, then that may be a valuable resource for another provider to come in and put in that last fiber to the farm kind of application.
That's exactly what we're hoping as we work on our RFPs. Okay, thank you, Bill.
Yeah, and if I may, Brian, we did the exact same thing. Because our topography, I think I'm using that term right, of our county, we're extremely rural, and we have two things that are kind of getting in the way of our fiber build in particular. One, we are right on the Mississippi River, and then two, on the west end of our county, we have a bluff that kind of goes down, I don't know, maybe 100 yards down. And then we have like a bottom, below the bluff is what they call us. I live below the bluff. We're sort of the most rural out of the entire county. And so the hotspots, and in particular, the new programs that are out there, like Starlink, for example, we're looking into those as options because, and even if they're just options for now, or options to get us over that bluff or to get us over, all these little rivers that are in our county. And we made that a part of our speed test process, where we had a generous donor come forward in our community to say, hey, we'll buy X number of Starlink kits just to test things. And we're finding people in the community that are saying, come out to my house and we'll test it. And we'll test it because, we have, when I say rural, I mean, there are maybe 5 people that live in a 5-mile radius of the top, northwest end of our county. Is it plausible to get fiber out there? No. Are we going to be able to talk a wireless provider into building a tower there? I don't know. That might be a hard sell. But if we can test some Starlink equipment or, whatever equipment, and maybe it works over there, maybe that's a good, like Bill was saying, a middle mile option. And then, how do we now look into some co-op options with our local ISPs on the west end to make that make sense? So it's not ideal, right? I don't think we're going to reach the speeds that we want. But if part of your vision and your goal is to provide access to some type of internet for those that don't have it, perhaps that can get built into, phase 1 or 2 of your entire build out.
Good, thanks, Cassie. I'm going to share a worksheet that is in your Dropbox there, the Google Drive that Robbie has, and he'll put the link into it into the chat. But here's just as you in your rooms, just a little worksheet to think about as you have your community discussion about, some communities already have a vision, but what did you learn today? What do you want to see included in your vision statement? What are the most important things for your community? Thinking about who else needs to really be a part of that as you think about different demographic groups or so on. Because sometimes our groups that we have on our Accelerate teams, aren't really representative of some of the people, people who are least connected in our community. So getting that kind of perspective is important. So you can see that document there, and Robbie, then there's a second worksheet in that Dropbox, and I'm going to stop sharing here and go back to our. I'm going to get rid of that, and then really today is a twofer on topics. So thank you to our panelists around the vision. I think they've really done a great job to show how important this is and how valuable that discussion is amongst your team members. I think, as we sit here and we got new teams, people haven't worked together previously in some cases. There's a lot of churning. There's a lot of, this isn't, oh, let's get, Project A new park or something that's more simple. This broadband thing is a very complex, dynamic kind of thing with a lot of different perspectives. So this is a great way to get your team set on a course. You might not always agree on everything, but hopefully you could get a consensus on kind of the direction you want to go and continue to build towards a stronger consensus as you move forward. So I think that's really an important part of this process, is to hear the voices, incorporate them, and do a great job listening to team members and trying to meet everyone on your team's desired outcomes. So that's it for our guests. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Bill.
Good to see everybody. Thank you.
Good to see you all.
The part 2 of our program today is around broadband provider interviews. And this is something that is a critical part of the process, the program. And some communities are hot and heavy. They say, hey, we want to build our own network, and we're going to operate that network as a municipal utility. Other communities say, hey, we don't want anything to do with any of this. We want the least possible role for ourselves. If we have to put in some dollars or write letters for a support for a grant application, I guess that would be, kind of the cheerleader function. That would be the lowest level of engagement. That is communities can really understand that. But broadband providers can be a great partner no matter which kind of course you're going to take to try and get better broadband in your community. And so understanding kind of the current situation with your broadband providers, this is really an important part of that. And so I'm gonna just got a couple slides on this topic. And as we think about establishing these relationships, and especially if you have a big multinational publicly traded company with headquarters who knows where, some of them times you can't even know what their name is because they changed their names with branding and so on. But the real purpose with provider interviews now is to develop relationships. And so we've got a friend, ally in this group called Vantage Point. They're a consulting firm. Kevin Clone says, well, a lot of this could be solved with a cup of coffee and a hamburger in the local cafe. I think that's a little over optimistic in most cases, but I think that relationship building that he's talking about there is really important. And really in these first meetings, and I would not delay on these meetings, I'd start these to begin to gather high-level information about these companies, learn about their existing plans, what they see as the perceived barriers, agree on some next steps. So you're really not trying to cut a deal on this first meeting. You're just trying to, okay, let's learn what they're, are they gonna, do they have plans for fiber optics? AT&T now has announced huge plans for fiber deployment. Probably not out in your rural communities, but maybe in your, not in the rural countryside, but maybe in your county seat communities. So it's good to meet those providers, develop relationships, find out who you can get quality information from. We've got a list of broadband providers by county. It just came yesterday, and one of our team members, Shabika, just changed her email address, which when my autofill showed up, I sent it to her old email, and so realized this morning I'd sent it to the wrong place, but we'll get those lists to you. And so that's name of the provider, contact information, names of individuals, phone numbers, and so on. So it'll be easy for you to make contact with the providers. And that will be coming at you very soon. The process, you want to identify those. And again, we have that list. Secondly, you want to think about who might provide service in our area. So you may live next to an area that's 100% fiber to the home area served by a telephone cooperative or an electric co-op, or that you'd say, hey, that'd be great if they came over and served our county the way they do the adjacent county. So understanding who those providers are, and you can look at those state broadband maps that we looked at previously, and click down, put a little spot on a well-served area, and you can identify who that provider is. And again, if you need help on doing that, Shabika can help with the mapping, or we can certainly, the Office of Broadband or our Accelerate team here can help you identify who that is and how to get in touch with them. We can also look at the providers that have received state or federal broadband grants and say, hey, if they were willing to go through that work to get those funds to improve their networks, that would be a good partner for us, because we're going to need those dollars in our community. And so I think that's another good list. And more with the availability of middle mile networks that cross Illinois, a provider doesn't have to be right next door. They can be across the state and still come in and say, hey, we're going to jump off here. We've got a good market. We've got good community partners. There's a middle mile that goes right to the county seat, to the county courthouse. We can establish a meeting point there and build from there. And so that's another place that you want to put on your list to interview and build that relationship. Start now. We had some communities in our last round that said, oh, we want to gather all our information before we talk to the providers. And I think that was a mistake because you want this to kind of serve as a partner selection funnel, that through this process, you're really saying, you know, let's figure out who we can really work with, who's really interested in our community, that will provide the best internet service, the best customer service at the lowest possible public investment. And so start that process now, and then maintain contact with them. And through the process, when the survey results are done, share those with them. When you see an announcement from the Office of Broadband about available dollars, you know, reach out, make contact with them. And because a lot of that informal conversation can lead to a very strong relationship. In terms of tools, we have an interview guide, and that's in the Dropbox that Robbie just shared. And those are a series of questions that I like as kind of a mid-level, high-level kind of questions that are comfortable for interviews. You're not necessarily grilling them. You're not. Last time we had a group that put together a list of questions that, you know, if you're getting into the final contract agreement with someone, you might want to ask those questions. Quality of service indicators and customer service locations and many other kind of very in-depth details. I would not start with those. I think the questions that we have are well suited to starting the conversation. And you might, you know, as you go through this, if these are good conversations, you might ask a single question, and that just leads through kind of the discussion. You can use that more as a guide than as a formal interview process. So I would keep it pretty informal and friendly, and go from there. I mentioned the provider lists, and then if you're trying to find a certain provider contact information, let us know, and we can hopefully provide that for you. So today, I guess as we approach our time for our breakout rooms, which is about now, I think, we'll want to focus today really on the vision. So work on your vision statement, use the worksheet as a discussion starter. Hopefully somebody can take notes. Maybe somebody can agree to say, hey, let's do after the discussion, somebody can say, hey, I'll take a shot at this, or 2 or 3 people can form a little subcommittee. I saw George had said, hey, we've got a draft vision statement, maybe that he did, and maybe it's based on some work they did with the Southwest Leadership Council. But I would encourage you to do the hard work, to go through that sheet and have the conversations before you start trying to craft that statement. I think the discussion you have will be very fruitful and valuable to lay a foundation for the work ahead. Any questions or comments?
Bill, I just want to direct people to the chat where Shubika put the drive for the list of your providers. And so it's done, each of the drives is done by your community.
Oh, good. Thank you, Shubika. She just got this morning at about 8:15 or so. So I appreciate the quick action. Ogle, do you have a question? Maybe not. So then let's, Nancy, if you want to go into the set up the breakout rooms, not the breakup rooms. Hopefully not yet in this process. We've got some multi-county groups. Maybe they want to break up. I don't know, but I think it's important to keep working and do this work in the breakout rooms. And our team will be around to assist with those. If you have any questions at any time, you can always text me, because if I'm in one room, you can't really chat with me on the thing. So 651-491-2551. But I think you're well served primarily with your community leaders and our room folks. So, you know, one thing I would say is that just a final thing is with our multi groups, we've got Ogle County that has multiple counties participating. We've got the Kaskaskia College, we've got Woodford, Peoria, and then we've got the Kankakee CDC coalition. There's no reason that if you establish a group vision for, we'll just say Peoria, Woodford, that if counties wanted to do additional kind of work on that kind of vision for them, that would be certainly possible to do. And but I would focus today on what are the shared values, what are the shared goals that you have for this joint effort, and then work through those additional kind of considerations further down the road. Good.